Hey guys, it's Stephen here. Welcome back to another episode of the City Social. And this time we're going to run through essentially like a half-term report of Manchester City's season so far, even though it isn't half-term, it isn't halfway through the season, but we're going to do that anyway. And I've been joined by two wonderful guests, Mr. David Mooney, of course, of the Why Always Up podcast and also the Blue Moon podcast. David, how you doing, mate? You right?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Keeping going.
Keeping going. And he was telling me beforehand how he's having big shot problems. And I think we all need to get away from the stress of the real world at the moment and talk about football. And also,
I didn't want to bring this up now, but I could do a whole hour on shopping, so let's not.
And also Dan Burke over in Berlin. Are you in Berlin at the moment? You are, aren't you?
Yes. I've got 99 but a big shop ain't one.
I don't want to know what they are actually. But anyway, today we're going to go through that. So I thought basically it's a good way to maybe just recap what we've seen from City so far, because as it currently stands, how many games have we played so far? 7 games. So, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season yet. But so far, we're currently sat in 10th, and it feels really long already because of the way football is at the moment. It feels like we've been playing forever, but it is still the start of the season. We're sat in 10th, 1 game less than the people at the top, obviously 6 behind the top of the table and 5 behind Liverpool. And we've had a kind of mixed bag of results so far. Doing well in the Champions League. We've scored 9 goals, conceded only 1 in the Champions League currently. We're also through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao, which is just weird, and I forgot we'd even played those games because there's been so many. But Dan, how has it felt so far for you, mate, at the start of this season? What's your overall impression so far?
I'm feeling pretty confident about it, actually, pretty optimistic. I mean, the season started really well with the win at Wolves. Obviously, the Leicester defeat was the sort of big low point of the season, really, and that was when I started to worry about our prospects and where we were going under Guardiola and all that kind of thing. But since then, I think they've generally been okay. I mean, there's been the odd result here and there that's not been great. West Ham away wasn't a great result, although West Ham are playing quite well. And then, coming up to the Liverpool game, the game before the international break, that has instilled me with a lot of confidence because I really felt like City looked like they could win the league that day and really looked like they have caught up with Liverpool quite significantly. I mean, the defending is looking way better than it has been in the past couple of seasons, with the arrival of Ruben Dias. So, I don't want to make any predictions because this is the most bizarre, unpredictable season we've ever seen and probably ever will see. But I feel confident that City might be in for a decent season after all, especially with all of Liverpool's injury troubles.
Yeah, the Liverpool game did feel kind of like an eye-opener for me. I saw a lot of people online, I guess it's Twitter, so it's understandable. Some people were a little bit negative about it, but I personally came away from that game feeling quite reassured, actually. And I know Liverpool have a few injuries, but to me, it felt like, actually, we've got a gear or two to go through still. And I feel like we could have come to beat Liverpool if we'd found those levels. But that's just my personal take. What about yourself, Mooney? I mean, how's it felt so far for you?
Yeah, I kind of agree on the Liverpool game. I felt like I was in the minority at the end of that game, being quite happy with the point, because I thought the way the game had panned out and the fact that Liverpool blitzed us for 20, 25 minutes at the start, and it could have been 3 or 4 up at that stage. City dealt with it really well, and then they grew into the game. Obviously, they've missed a penalty, so we're all disappointed that they've not gone in at half-time ahead, and then they've dominated the second half, and we're all disappointed they've not been able to get the winning goal.
Yeah.
When actually there's enough signs there, like Dan was saying about the defence, that things were looking a lot more stable and a lot more secure, if not very creative at the moment. And I think that's what my issue with the season is. I'm not as confident as Dan is about getting the title back purely on that creativity side. You think of the point at West Ham or the point at Leeds. Both of those games it was either not finishing chances, which is an age-old City problem, or not really creating the chances in the first place, which is a kind of a new problem. The only thing I would say to benefit that is that they are defending a lot better, and the one-on-one defending, especially with Laporte and Diaz, has been superb at times this season. So if they end up having to nick games 1-0 and 2-1, that sort of thing, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to be in a position where they get towards 90, 95 points. But is that going to be the sort of total that you need to win the league this season? I don't think Liverpool are looking like champions at the moment. Who else is going to win the league at the moment? That's the question.
Yeah.
And I think City have got as good a chance as any in that. I just think the problem is it's a little bit too unpredictable to say right now, I'm confident City will go on and do it. You know what I mean?
Have you seen any performances so far, Mooney, that have impressed you? Like, was there any standout performances of all the games that we've seen? I mean, it could be the Liverpool game, it could have been maybe one of the cup games or anything like that. Is there anything particular stood out for you?
Yeah, I was impressed by the Liverpool game. Not really the first 20 minutes or so, but what encouraged me more than anything about that was a problem that City have had under not just Guardiola but under Pellegrini, and going back to even to last season under Mancini. When the momentum in a game goes against them, they really struggle to get that game back. And more often than not, the games, like we as fans, will sit there. City will go behind, and things are going against them. And we've said for years, they're not getting back into this. And other fans of other teams will go, well, but City always get back into it. And I think a lot has been lost in the last kind of 5 or 6 years or so, purely because of the amount of games where City haven't had to do that. And so as soon as it gets to a point now where the momentum's going against them, they're not very good at wrestling control of the game back. Except against Liverpool the other week. I thought the way that they took control of that game after having no control whatsoever for the first 25 minutes was really encouraging, because what it says is that this group of players is almost maturing to a point where they're able to come back into this game and not lose their heads when things aren't looking like they're going their way. Calm down and just trust themselves to do what we all know they can do. Okay, they've not been as creative as they could be in recent weeks, but I think that is the most encouraging sign to take from that game. And, forget that they didn't go on to win it. The fact that they looked the more likely to go on to win it, I think is really important in this instance as well. And like Dan was saying, the start of the season against Wolves, I was really encouraged that it didn't feel like just a continuation of last season. It felt, okay, we've seen some of the problems from last season carry on into this season, but it feels like there has been a bit of a clean break, and that performance at Wolves was a big part of that.
Dan, do you think it's, Mooney touched on it a little bit there, do you think this is a different Man City this season compared to the one last year? I mean, obviously there's been elements of being a bit frustrated in front of goal, which we did see a bit last year, but defensively, I mean, it does feel different, doesn't it? I mean, I'm putting words into your mouth there, but for me personally, it does. Do you share those sentiments, or, I think my camera's just gone flat. Hang on. Camera just changed. It died, the battery. Thank you, camera. I've got my other webcam on. Dan, we were just saying, do you feel like City feel different this season? I mean, obviously, we just talked about how defensively solid they were and how, I guess, it felt like we took back control of the game against Liverpool. Do you share those sentiments? Or?
Yeah, definitely with the defence. Yeah, I mean, I think Ruben Dias has been a great signing so far. I must admit, I hadn't seen an awful lot of him before he came and was a little bit sceptical, given that it felt like he was sort of City's second or third choice that they were going for. I wasn't really sure if he was going to have such a transformative effect on the team and be so good at kind of playing the ball out, but he's been brilliant so far. He's formed a great understanding with Laporte really quickly. And I think, with Van Dijk being injured particularly, I think City probably have the best defensive pairing in the league so far, which is really good to see. And it feels like they've solved a lot of issues with that one signing. In other areas of the pitch, I don't want to sort of read too much into the results so far and the way City have been playing. That you look at the sort of goal stats and they're very low compared to previous seasons, but then they've had to do without both of their strikers for much of the season so far. That was obviously a big problem that people seem to be overlooking a little bit when those two were injured. But generally speaking, I think, like I said, going forward, they looked a little bit more dangerous against Liverpool. I think Gabriel Jesus got that goal. And I think going forward, they are going to be there or thereabouts at the top of the league. I mean, the game against Spurs at the weekend is going to be a big test for both teams, I think. Spurs probably fancy themselves as potential title contenders this season. They've been playing pretty well so far, so I'm going to be really interested to see how that game goes.
Is there any concerns that you've noticed so far, Dan? Like, obviously, based on these games that we've seen, I mean, it could simply be because, we've not had any strikers or anything like that. But based on all the performances we've seen so far, of course, there was some indifferent results, I guess. I mean, the Leicester was just diabolical. But then the West Ham game, some people were frustrated by that. Was there any moments that you personally seen that have rung some alarm bells for you?
Not so much, really. No.
Okay.
Maybe I'm sort of feeling more confident than I should be.
No, it's fine. You don't have to lie. I mean, that's how you feel. That's how you feel.
Yeah, I just think that they're slowly getting there, City, and everyone's in the same boat, having not had much pre-season this year. Everyone's sort of, City particularly seems to be flagging pretty hard in the second half of games.
That pre-season thing, by the way, sorry, just to interrupt the pre-season thing. Do you think that's a fair comment, given the fact that everyone else has been going through the same situation? Just playing devil's advocate. I mean, can City really turn around and say that affects us more, or is it just that? Why do you think that?
We did start the season a bit later than most of the teams, because of the Champions League participation. So maybe that has played a part in it. I don't really know. I mean, I've watched a lot of Premier League games this season. I haven't really noticed anyone else struggling as much as City have done with the demands of this. And Guardiola was talking after the Liverpool game about, feeling that it would have been better if been able to make 5 substitutions this season, which I'm sort of coming around to the idea of that myself, having been quite sceptical about it at first. So yeah, I don't really know when you're going to get up to speed with everything, because there's no chance for a break at any point, really, is there? Everyone's got off playing for their international teams now. So luckily, as things stand, City haven't picked up any further injuries during the international break. So hopefully it stays that way.
On the injury front, surely that's going to be something that there's a lot of noise, by the way, coming from someone's mic. I'm not sure if it's David's or not, but
I think that's me. I think the roadworks outside my house.
they picked up big time. It's not Guardiola working on some mad new formation or something like that. But basically, so if you hear that, just ignore it. I feel like a commentator on TV. You may have heard some noises there. But has anyone stood out for you so far this season, Mooney? Anyone in particular that has impressed? And also, on the other hand, anyone that you expected a little bit more from?
I think the one that I think I've been impressed by, that I'm going to name because I don't think anybody else has really picked up on it so far, is Ederson. He had a bad season last season. Yeah, Goalkeepers Union. But he had a bad season last season. That he dropped a fair few clangers. And this season, apart from that game at Leeds where you'd expect him to do better with the cross that eventually led to Leeds' equaliser, I don't think he's put a foot wrong. And I think a big part of how City are defending is his willingness to come off his line like he did in the early stages against Liverpool, command his area like he has been doing more recently, but also just the fact that he's making good saves again. I mean, you think of that Arsenal game, there was a couple of great saves in there. The one that stands out off the top of his shoulder and behind or onto the bar and behind was a big one. But there was one from Aubameyang that Aubameyang was flagged offside, and it comes straight through, and Ederson comes out, makes a great save, and then the replay shows that Aubameyang was onside. So if that goes in, VAR looks at it and gives the goal. So it's like even though it didn't count in the moment, it was still an important save for him to make at that time. So I think Ederson's improvement has been a big part of the defence. And then obviously you move forward, you look at how Laporte's come back in from his injury and how Diaz has settled in. Like Dan mentioned, they've been great together. The ones I want to see a bit more from are the more forward-thinking players, and I keep coming back round to this idea that has been suggested to us on the pod. I was rubbishing on the podcast for 18 months because City were doing it fine where they inverted the wingers. But it's now feeling like it's coming back to bite them, and they haven't got the width that they need to create chances at the other end. My worry for the season is purely about not necessarily City taking the chances, but now actually creating the chances. Their expected goals from games this season is about half what it was last season. And last season, I didn't think it was great either. So I don't really know how you change that, because if teams are setting up with a 5-4-1 every week, and that's how they play, and that's how they're setting up against City, then there's going to be no space come what may. So how do you get around that? How do you get Bernardo Silva more space? How do you get Mahrez room to beat a man and then get a shot away? It's really difficult.
Is it as simple as David Silva, Dan? Is it as simple as that? I mean, is that the really obvious, elephant in the room and slapping us in the face here? Is it that, Dan?
No, really. I mean, because Silva wasn't great last season, was he? He didn't contribute an awful lot, really. So I don't think.
But his movement, though, between the lines, is it? I don't know.
I mean, I'd love to see Bernardo Silva doing a bit more of that. I'd love to see him come back to the sort of heights that he hit in the 18-19 season when he was phenomenal. He's shown a couple of glimpses of it. I think like the Arsenal game, I think it was. He played really well in that game and put in one of those performances where he ran a lot and was sort of everywhere on the pitch at once. I'd like to see a bit more from him. I think Foden's been pretty good so far this season as the kind of natural heir to David Silva. But yeah, no one has really, like, in an attacking sense, stood out for us this season. Sterling's been quite good. Obviously, the two strikers have been injured mostly, as we mentioned, and Mahrez, that game against West Ham was particularly poor from him. And some people have probably seen on social media a goal he scored for Algeria this afternoon that was just superb against Zimbabwe. And you kind of think, can we see a bit more of that Riyad Mahrez? And it's a shame what's happened to him, because he was really good last season. He was probably one of our best players. Probably only behind De Bruyne. So I'd like to see a bit more from him, yeah. But in terms of players who play really well, I think Kyle Walker as well has been magnificent. I think he's probably been the best defender in the Premier League so far this season.
So he's not an idiot then?
No, he's not.
I enjoyed De Bruyne's response, by the way, how he saying Joaquin's a different kind of person, which is a very, very subtle way of saying that. But
Can we just throw in Cancelo as well there? Because I think
Yes.
Cancelo in the last few weeks has been really good, and he's one of those players that I think a lot of people have made their minds up on and are not going to change for about 18 months unless if he carries this on for 18 months, you'll still have people going, but I'm not really sure about him. He defends with his arms behind his back sometimes, and that's your criticism, you know.
Doesn't he feel different this season, Cancelo? I mean, my biggest criticism of Cancelo last season is he was kind of just there. You know, like, when you sign a player, obviously it's not really his fault how much money we pay for him, but it was a lot of money, And when you sign someone for that kind of money and you don't really see a reason to be excited, you kind of like, I want to see something special at some point. He felt like every time he played, you saw something. It was kind of all right. But now it does feel like we're actually seeing Cancelo find his own identity, even if he is playing out of position. But the chances he created, I think it was Sam who tweeted about how he's our second most chances created has come from Cancelo from left back. I've been really excited by him. I mean, are we just doing that whole thing again, the way we get excited by a person playing out of position and eventually it'll fall through in 10 months from time? I wouldn't.
Possibly. It's left backs, though, isn't it? That's the thing.
Left backs. I mean, who needs left backs anyway? We've been fine about him. Guys, I kind of want to get a report card score. I don't even know what stage of the season we're at, but it's an international break, so it kind of feels relevant. You go for the old metric system, the pluses and the minuses and the A, B, C, Ds and all that kind of stuff. Dan, what score are you going to give the season so far?
Well, I have to let you in a little secret. I don't know what that...
What's in red pen? Oh, go on. What are you going to say, sorry?
I was going to say, I don't know what this plus-minus stuff means. I didn't have any of that on my score.
Oh, really?
So I'm just going to give them a straight-up B, I think.
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable score. I think they've not been amazing. They've been pretty good.
Like a B plus would be slightly better than that, and then an A minus would be slightly better than that.
Yeah.
Which
is confusing, admittedly, yeah. B's not a bad shout, though. Go on, what about yourself, Mooney?
I was thinking a B minus, and I think only a B minus because that game in hand I think is distorting how we look at things at the moment.
Yeah.
If obviously if City win the game in hand, then they're 3 points off the top of the table, and at this stage of the season you can't really argue with that. You still got to play most of the teams home and away. Their title rivals, you would expect to be Liverpool. They've played them and they've not lost to them, so it's going okay. I just want to see a little bit more of the old City back, a bit more attacking style. And I think the fact that they've scored one goal in the last in consecutive Premier League games, it's about 6 games now, 5-6 games. That is a little bit of a worry for me. And so when they start showing that they can score a few more goals, I'll up the grade a bit. But for now, B minus, I think.
I think that's fair. I mean, that's what I had in my head as well, B minus, because I feel like, once again, that game could slightly change. All of a sudden, we're 3 points behind. And we're saying, it's been a pretty decent start to the season, given the caveats, given the injuries, given the fact that we essentially got, a new centre-back pairing, which could have been disastrous, because obviously when you bring anyone new, they have a bit of a leeway, but he's come in and been really good, Ruben Diaz, and I think so far, I think it's a decent start to the season. It's okay. It's not been brilliant, but there are room for improvement, really. And I do think Guardiola's kind of fixed the defence, seemingly, touch wood and all that kind of stuff. But it looks like he has. So the one thing we know Guardiola can do is create and score goals, his team. So I don't see any reason why we can't get that back again at some point. Fingers crossed. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed it. Don't forget to go and check out, obviously, Mooney's podcast. He's the podcast king in the city space.
They're all over the place, yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere. There'll be links in the description. Of course, Dan, he's just awesome, man. He's from One Football, which are fantastic. Thank you, One Football. Constantly sponsoring my channel as well. But for now, guys, let us know down in the comments what you make of City's season so far. Let us know your standout players and your score of the season so far. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.